You sleeping? You sleeping? What are you doing? You want to come see us?
And you can watch this later on YouTube. It's up there.
Okay. Alright. So this is Dash. He's not as picky as Zoe is, so we're trying to acclimate him a lot more to all different types of touches and everything. So you can brush down his sides and things like that, and he's not gonna be as ticklish as Zoe is. But we still support him underneath his booty and just do nice slow pets. And then just keep in mind they do have that really poor eyesight, so we try to stay away from like under the chin or on the belly or anything like that. So he'll grab a hold of your torso first, and then you'll just support underneath his booty. See if we can get some rice together for him for a little snack. And you can see he's a lot darker than Zoe is. And they're the same type of sloth. They're both two-toed sloths. They both came from the same breeder and everything, but Dash is a lot younger. And when they're first born, they're like that darkest part that he has on his head. It's basically what they are all over, because they blend into mom's belly a lot easier if they're dark like that rather than if they're a real light color. And it takes them a while to develop that moss and algae and everything. They need to blend into mom as best they can for the first while they're still on her. So the two-toed sloths will keep their babies for about 4 or 5 months. And the three-toed sloths will keep them for a little bit longer. They keep them for about a year. But as you can imagine, to have a baby sloth, it's pretty energy expensive for the mother, already dealing with not a whole lot of energy to begin with. Because of their diet, they eat the Ocoee leaves, and that's really low in caloric content, and it takes calories in order to create ATP, which is their energy source. So having a baby that's nursing off of them and everything all the time, that can be kind of expensive for them. And sloths don't have the ability to store milk. As soon as the baby starts to suckle, their body will produce that milk and then provide it to the baby right away. So there's no storage in between that. So if you wanted to hold this with one hand, you kind of just hold it real close to his face right there, and we'll see if he wants to eat any of it. Take a few while you're feeding him. To do that before, when you put it on the portrait, it makes the noise, but on the regular photo, it didn't make a noise when I was taking pictures.
Oh, yeah.
It's weird. So you guys are from Kentucky?
Yeah.
Did you hear about us through TikTok?
Yeah. Yeah, it just popped up on my feed, and
Yeah.
I said, oh, well, that's not too far away, so. Because we usually, we'll come to, Gatlinburg, and Pigeon Forge and all that.
But you guys are staying here, right, in the one of the covered wagons? You like
The
it?
welcome wagon.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah.
Good.
We really love it. It's so pretty. I mean, it's beautiful.
You wouldn't think that the cabins are as spacious as they are.
Yeah.
Now the welcome wagon, that's the one that has the full bathroom, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Does it have a shower in there too?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
See, I haven't been able to see inside all the cabins yet.
Oh, okay.
I've only been here for 2 months.
Okay. Yeah.
But I've heard they're pretty nice when it rains too, because that rain coming down on the canvas top.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Oh, I'm
pretty
sure.
nice.
And of course, the kids, they, get out there. They've been in the little river,
Yeah.
swimming and all that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Well, earlier I know we talked about the moths, right?
Yeah.
The sloth-moth relationship, but I don't think I really talked about their internal, how they are inside. So you wouldn't think it by looking at the sloth. If he's done with that, I can take that from you. You wouldn't think it by looking at the outside of the sloth, but on the inside they're kind of built like trucks. So they have a total of 46 ribs. That's 23 sets of ribs. That's double what we have. And with all of those ribs, that goes all the way down right up against their hip bone. So it's basically a protective casing for them, for all of their organs and everything. And then on average, sloths fall out of the tree about once a week, whether that's due to just a miscalculated step and they've grabbed their own leg, then they go tumbling down, or if something has startled them, their goal is to just get away from it, get to the end of that branch. They end up falling off the end of the branch. Regardless, they fall out of the tree about once a week, and that's pretty unfortunate if they couldn't survive those falls, because the sarcopia trees go up like 100+ feet in the air. But a sloth is built to survive a fall from 100 feet in the air. And that's because when they fall, they kind of go spread eagle, all 4 limbs go out, and they kind of fall like a pancake. And so when they do fall, their bones, their ribs and everything are really pliable, so they just kind of bend with the weight of the sloth and then go back to normal. So they don't really break any bones or anything like that unless they were to hit a branch just right on the way down. And then with all of the ribs that they have, there's a lot of connective tissue that's adhered to those ribs and then going all through their organs and their intestines and everything that keep everything inside just in the right place where it's supposed to be. And so because of that, they don't really experience any type of internal damage like we do. Like if we were to get into a car accident, our body cavity slams against the front end of the car, that airbag, and then our organs slam into the front of our body cavity. But for them, everything's so tightly suspended right where it's supposed to be that it doesn't really jostle around too much for them, so they don't really get into any internal damage or internal bleeding or anything like that. So it's pretty
That's neat.
cool for them.
Yeah, that's really cool. Wow.
And then for a sloth, you know, we already talked about how poor their vision is, and anything in the wild that moves quickly towards a sloth or by a sloth is bad news for the sloth. They just want to get away from it. Their first line of defense is just to evade the threat. They don't want to be around it. They don't want to have to deal with it. If they're pushed to the point where they get to the end of the branch and that thing is still coming at them, they can use their claws to swat, or they can bite. You know, they have the 4 pretty sharp canines there towards the front. But it's kind of best case scenario for the sloth if they both end up getting to the end of that branch and they both end up falling, because the sloth is going to probably survive that fall, and the cat, you know, the jaguar or ocelot, probably not going to survive that fall because they're going to try to land on all 4s, and from a height from 100 feet in the air, they're probably going to break all 4s. If they do make it, they're going to be laying there for a while. So that's kind of best case scenario for the sloth, because they'll just go right back up that tree, go right to the same spot they were before.
Yeah.
It works out pretty well for them.
Yeah.
Then everything inside of the sloth is geared to be an upside down animal. We talked about the locking mechanisms a little bit, didn't we? Yeah. So they're built to be able to, hang upside down their entire lives. And some scientists speculate that their eyesight is kind of reversed to ours, so when their head's upside down, that's their way of seeing right side up. And if they were to fall out of a tree and be on their stomach crawling, that's like everything's upside down for them. And it makes sense because everything outside of their body is geared to be upside down. Everything from their circulatory system, their digestive tract, the connective tissue that holds everything right where it's supposed to. So it makes sense that their eyesight would be like that too. Their circulatory system is not like ours, where we're built to be upright creatures. We're supposed to be feet at the lowest point, head at the highest point, and if you change it much other than laying down sideways, it doesn't really work out. If you do a handstand, all that blood's going to rush to your head. Or if I held my arm up here in the air for very long, my hand's going to fall asleep because all the blood's going to rush down. But for a sloth, their circulatory system is extremely adaptable. So they can, typically most of the time they hang by all 4 legs onto the branch, but they can let go of their front feet and extend all the way down where their head is at the lowest point, eating branches down there. And their circulatory system will adapt to that, where some valves will slam closed and others will pump harder to be able to still supply blood all the way to their toes and not letting it pull all the way to their head while they're upside down like that. And while they're completely inverted, they're also eating. For a sloth, it's really energy expensive if they were to have to go back to the trunk of the tree, go down the branch, and then go back out that limb to get to a lower branch that they're trying to get food on. So all they have to do is just extend down and reach those branches, and they can still eat while they're completely upside down like that, and that's because their digestive system only has the one-way valves.
Yeah.
So it works out perfectly for them.
Yeah, that's neat, because I've seen them like eating upside down like that. I'm like, wow.
Now, I may have mentioned it already, but the 2-toed sloths, they can extend all the way down, and if they extend all the way down from that one branch and there's a branch behind them that they're trying to get to, they can rotate their spine all the way back to get a hold of that. Whereas the three-toed sloths, they have 3 extra vertebrae in their cervical spine where they can't move their lumbar spine that much, but they can rotate their head all the way back to look behind them or to grab something that's behind them. And it's kind of cool too that the three-toed sloths, you can definitely tell a difference, and their necks are a lot longer than the two-toed sloths. It's kind of freaky to see them looking around with that big old long neck.
Mm-hmm.
And then the three-toed sloths, they do have just a little bit of a tail, like 3 or 4 vertebrae of a tail. And it helps them. It's thought that the three-toed sloths actually have an even greater population of moths that live on them, because when they come down, we talked about how those moths will come down and lay their eggs in the dung pile of the sloth, and then it takes 3 weeks for them to turn into adult moths that will then crawl back up onto the sloth. And since the three-toed sloth has a little tail, it's kind of gross, but they actually use that tail and they kind of swirl it around in their dung pile. And that allows for when the moths are just reaching that stage where they're developing into new moths, like if they're still trying to figure out how to crawl around and climb and things like that, they can grab a hold of that sloth a lot easier because that tail's down there in the pile. So the three-toed sloths, they have even greater bacteria supply in their gut, and they have a lot more like nitrogen and phosphorus, things like that that come with having those moths on their back. It's even more for them because they have so much more on them. And it can be, I mean, you know, before I knew anything about sloths, I saw a video of a guy that was trying to help a sloth cross the road. And he went over and he had a branch that he offered it to him, and the sloth kind of grabbed a hold of that branch and he was transporting across the road. And you took a minute and looked at that sloth, and there's all kinds of bugs and moths crawling all through that thing, and I'm like, that thing is not in good health. You need to give it a bath, get all that off of it. Like, obviously that thing is sick or something. That's before I knew anything about sloths. And those moths are really beneficial to the sloth and everything, and if you didn't know that, had no prior knowledge of owning a sloth or anything like that, you know, maybe it's somebody, a good Samaritan, thinks they're going to do a good deed and washes all of that off without knowing anything about how the sloth works, then they basically, you know, just destroyed that animal because they don't have any more means to digest their food. So a lot of people, I think that they probably mean well down there, like doing the sanctuaries and stuff like that, but they just don't fully understand. You know, for a lot of people down there, it's their way of life. Their father did it that way, so that's how they're doing it, and that's how they're going to do it for years to come if the system allows them to do that. But thankfully, the Conservancy agency down there has been doing a better job of trying to enforce laws and things like that for them to try to conserve and protect the species. If I jump down, he tends to try to look at me. He bends his head all the way back and look. He sees me moving around. Yeah. I knew he was going to. He don't get down tonight. And they do tend to kind of pick their people too. I don't know if I talked about the relationship that Zoe has with Donna, but when Zoe first, or when they first got Zoe, Donna held her all the time up at the house because they stay at the main house until they're a year old. And when she's up there, you know, she was the first baby sloth that we had, and so we wanted to do everything just right. And Zoe obviously all the time wanted to be held. And so Donna was up there doing, you know, she does everything on the computer, all the virtual sides of everything. So she just held Zoe all the time, and because of that, she got so attached to Donna that Donna can't really come down here and do encounters like this anymore, because if she did and she was in the same room as Zoe and somebody else was holding Zoe, Zoe would just be trying to get to Donna the entire time. And I got to actually see that firsthand when I was first learning how to do everything down here. She came down and was teaching me how to do an encounter with Zoe, and she had to lower her voice really low and talk in a different tone of voice, because the entire time Zoe's like, give me, trying to get to Donna. So I'm trying my hardest with Dash to not be the only one that holds him while he's down here, other than, you know, guests. And everybody has a chance to feed him. I try to use you guys as much as I can, that you guys can feed him while you're holding him, just so he doesn't get so attached to me that he's looking for me constantly.
Yeah.
And I don't feel too special, because I know sometimes if I'm standing up or moving around, he's looking at me the whole time, looking like he's trying for me to, like he wants me to get him. But he does that to everybody. A lot of times, if somebody were to open up that door right now, he'd break his neck trying to look to see who came in the door. Even though they can't really distinguish who's who by looking at him, he's waiting to see it. You know, he knows too, if that fridge opens up, if he hears that fridge open up, he knows he's probably about to get a snack. Yep. So they aren't dumb animals. A lot of people think that they're stupid or they don't understand things, but they do. And they have really good memories as well. You wouldn't think it, but their eyesight is so poor that a lot of times a sloth will stay in the same tree for a long time, and as long as they're in that same tree, they know exactly, the tree's, you know, up 100 feet plus, but they know everything that's in the top of that tree, where the branches are at, which branches create just the right position for them to be able to lay in, take them a nap, which places have the best fresher leaves and things like that, and they start to memorize, okay, if I put this claw here, that claw there, it works out the best to be able to get there, and they start to memorize how to get there. And it's pretty interesting too to see Flash sometimes. He does his encounters out here first thing in the morning. We'll feed him his breakfast, and then when we let him go back in, he skedaddles his way out to the outdoor enclosure. He loves to be outside as long as no kids are out there screaming and carrying on. But he will go outside the same way every single time, and when he gets around, there's a certain little crook right there that he always reaches around with his right claw first, and then his left claw over, and then the back feet. And he does it the same every time, because that's the way that works best for him. And you can tell there's sometimes, like this morning, we didn't have the outdoor enclosure open quick enough, and he started to go in there, and he started to go up to the hammock. He was going to just go up to his hammock and take a nap, but then he realized we were opening the door. He was like, oh, well, maybe I want to go outside. So he had to come down a different way than he usually does, and you could tell it took him a minute to figure out, you know, because they can't see that well. He's trying to figure out, okay, if I put it here and then maybe here, then that's what, you know, he had to do it a little bit different that time, so he wasn't as quick with it.
I can't believe that's super soft.
Yeah. And we don't really have to do too much for him as far as hygiene or upkeep like that. Dash, we've given him one bath before, because he stays in his basket a lot of the times, and his enclosure is a really big bird cage. We set the entire basket in there, and so sometimes he'll have accidents in the basket where he'll go to the bathroom and kind of roll around in it. So we gave him a bath one time. He did pretty well with it, and he stayed pretty soft since then. And he tolerates it a lot better than Zoe. Towards the end, their hair is kind of like have cowlicks towards the bottom, and I brush his down all the time. Zoe can't stand it. She doesn't like fingertips on her like that. She's real particular about how she likes to be pet. So really just an open hand like that. If you start to use your nails, she starts to claw back at you like, stop that, that tickles.
Oh gosh. That's too funny.
So it is funny how they all have their own different personalities. And even though Dash and Zoe came from the same facility, there's been a lot of people with Dash that they see how we hold Zoe and how Zoe likes to cuddle up around our shoulders and everything, and they'll try to scooch him up to get him to do the same thing. He's like, stop doing that. He'll scooch his way back down.
Feels weird.
You don't think of, you think of dogs, they all have their own personalities and different weird quirks and things like that. Even between same breeds, same dog breeds, they have different things that they like. And sloths are the same way. They all have their own favorite foods, and certain days they'll have a different favorite food. Like this morning, Zoe was fit to be tied. She only wanted sweet potatoes.
So I guess they can be kind of particular too. Are they awake like most of the day, or do they?
Through the day, they sleep most of the time, and then through the night, through the evenings and stuff like that, they start to get more active. We have cameras in both of their enclosures. We watch them after we go home and stuff, like little weirdos, but they do move around a lot more in the evenings. They go over to get their dinner and come around and things. And most of the time they go to the bathroom at night too, so Zoe, she was pretty set there for about a month. About every Friday night she would go to the bathroom. And then we'd have to have a big mess to clean up Saturday morning, but she got a little bit off that schedule. She's still kind of working it out, but yeah.
It's too funny.
But since they only go about every 7 to 10 days, it's like 1/3 of their entire body weight every time they do go, so it is a massive amount. And so there for a while, every Saturday morning, Zoe was just ravishly hungry, could not get enough in her mouth. So we'd have to be sure and feed her before we had an encounter with her, because otherwise she's just looking for food the whole time. She could care less about snuggles.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you heard me move. Yeah, it's weird. Every time I move to portrait, take a picture of a portrait, it makes that sound.
Yeah.
Keep looking at You got rice on your chin and everything. That's a great look for you. He's like a toddler. He can't stand for his face to be cleaned off.
Really?
Yes, you try to reach and clean it off or wipe his mouth or anything. He's like,
Oh, yeah.
and my time's up, unfortunately, so you won't have to do anything. What he'll do with his right claw, I'll put my arm down, his right claw will go over, so just don't let him smack you in the face.
Oh.
He's pretty quick with it, you know, when he wants to do something, he can move pretty quick. I always had to tell people that because otherwise they get a little smack to the face right after they've just been getting snuggled.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully some of those pictures turned out good for you. I
Yeah.
tend to take a lot, so I have to go through them all.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome. And then, like I said, they're on the Facebook. We were on Facebook and TikTok, but Facebook keeps it on there somehow, so you can go back later this evening to look at those and everything too. So
Okay.
hopefully